Welcome back, or welcome, whatever it is. This video we're talking about the DJI Mic 2 and how you can get better audio even before you start recording or editing. There's also going to be a challenge at the end of the video, and that challenge is connected to 32-bit float versus 24-bit. So stay tuned for that. But first, 3 tips that will make it easier, faster, and give you less work in post when recording audio with the DJI Mic 2, also with other microphones. So tip number 1 is to experiment with microphone placement, because you don't have to have it up here. You can, of course, have it further down, like so. The audio will be slightly lower in volume when here compared to here, but it should be a little bit clearer. The big difference is when I hold it like this. As you can hear, there's a huge difference in clarity, and the clarity comes, of course, from the membrane on the microphone being straight in front of my mouth, catching all the different frequencies from my voice. Now compare that to keeping it here or here. Of course, there's a reason why people hold it like this. It's because the audio is better, so there's less work in post. If I were to place it here on my cap, the characteristics of the audio changes again. So this is different from here, different from here, different from here. So if you experiment a little bit, you can figure out what works best with your voice. So you can use this as a boom mic. Now the audio volume is because it's further away from my mouth. You need to have more gain, because now I'm holding it here. You can see it in frame, but that's just because I'm demonstrating. What you would do would be to frame yourself so that this would be up here maybe, just out of frame. And by placing the microphone further away, but increasing the gain, as long as your room is quite silent and doesn't have a lot of noise, you can get a strong signal from the microphone, even though it's further away from your mouth. Not anywhere close in quality to a proper boom mic, but still good enough. There will be differences in which frequencies from your voice is being captured by the microphone. So taking time before recording to just sit down, experiment, and figure out, especially if you're using the microphone just for yourself, like I'm doing now, talking to the camera, sitting down, spending a half an hour, 60 minutes, just experimenting, holding it in your hand, clipping it here, putting it down here on your chest, seeing what works and what gives you the clearest audio is a very good thing to do. Now the second tip is, when you're experimenting like this, also experiment with gain. Now there's gain settings for both the microphone, the receiver, but also on your camera. Right now I'm using the iPhone 15 Pro Max and I'm using the Blackmagic camera app. And for this setup, I have the audio at 100% in the camera app. On the receiver, the audio is 0 or 0 gain, and I have a 6+ gain on the microphone. Now, since I can see the display of the receiver, I can see that the green bar is very close to, but not crossing into the yellow, which is important. That means the audio on the peak level is around 10 decibel minus, negative. You know what I mean. 0 is max. So while you're doing the other exercise of placements with the microphone, the second thing you should do is make sure that your gain settings are correct. Always start at 0 at every point and then work your way either up or down. Putting this on 0 and the receiver on 0, I could see that my signal into the receiver was a little bit on the low side. It was closer to minus 20 decibels. So what I did was I increased the gain on the microphone to make sure that I have the strongest signal possible from the source instead of gaining on the receiver. That's something you should do only if gaining here doesn't give you the appropriate result you want. So right now, with the voice, or with the volume on my voice that I'm using now, the bar is in the green and it doesn't cross over into the yellow, which means I'm around minus 12 to minus 10 decibels, which is good. I also checked on the phone and it stays in the green on that as well, which means we should be in the clear. Now the third tip has to do with your voice. Following this tip and spending some time basically exercising will give you a much easier job in post when mixing audio. If you tend to fluctuate and raise your voice and get really excited, then you talk really low, and then you raise your voice and get really excited, and then you go back down again. This is going to cause problems when you try to level out your audio in post, which is not ideal because then you have to spend some time setting the compressor up, adjusting the settings for that, trying to level out, taking the higher volume level thingies down and then increasing the more quieter parts. If you practice and train to speak more, not fluently, more on a level, more trying to be more consistent in your delivery. So if you spend time practicing to speak more consistently at the same level, it will make it much easier in post because you don't have to apply as much compressor to make your voice sound more even. And this is something that's kind of important because if you want repeatability in your setup, so you have the kind of the same setup every time you record, once you've set your gain, everything is fine, and you've gotten accustomed to speaking at a certain voice level. You see the bar, the volume level bar thingy being at the proper point where it should be. It makes for a lot less work later in post. Now, the challenge I mentioned in the beginning of the video is for those of you who feel that the whole 32-bit float versus 24-bit discussion is about audio quality. The thing about 32-bit float is not audio quality. It has to do with flexibility in how you can treat the audio signal if you keep the audio chain from device to device at 32-bit float. This microphone records internally in 32-bit float. The signal that goes to the receiver is 24-bit. In this video, at 3 different points in time, I switched out the 24-bit audio from the camera with the backup recording that's done in 32-bit float. Now, if you're one of those that think that the audio quality is better in 32-bit float, I challenge you to go back, watch through the video again, and find those 3 timestamps where I've switched out from 24-bit to 32-bit float. So now you can prove yourself. Get your best audio monitors out, the best headset you have, listen really closely to the audio, and put it in the comments below or on the side if you're on the newer layout thing, and put in those timestamps of where the audio with 32-bit float begins. My guess is you won't get it. Good luck. So that was the 3 tips I had of what you can do before you start recording. Over here, there's going to be a video about what you can do after you've recorded in your editing software, if it's done. If not, I'm going to link back to the DJI video I've made about some of the missing features and things to be aware of before buying the DJI Mic 2. So if you don't want to miss out on that, you should probably subscribe. And yeah, that's all I had for now. See you in the next one.